everybody, and welcome once again to the Global Game. I'm your host, Marc Power, and in this edition, we're traveling back to the United States. See, back when Cindy started planning 26 weeks or less on this channel, I called dibs on the show we're going to be talking about today. It only had about a 10-week run or so on the air. The plan was going to be that I was going to guest host an episode of that and talk about the show. But I never got around to making the video. I was very busy at the time. But now, I finally gotten around to it, and it's time to talk about it. You see, 1975 was such a huge year for game shows in the United States. In fact, many would say it might be when the genre was at its peak. Something like 25 different game shows were on the air over the networks over the course of the year. And I'm not sure if we ever had those numbers again, or even had them before. So I'm sure someone could correct me on that. And a lot of the shows that were coming out then weren't so great and got deservedly short runs. There were a few that were pretty good and became instant classics. And then there were those that were good but just got lost in the shuffle. Today we're going to be looking at one of those that I think, under better circumstances, could have had a better run. And I think it was a hidden gem. But I admit I've got a bias because I happen to love Q&A strategy games. So if you agree with me, be sure to, or if you agree or disagree with me, leave a comment. And we'll leave that open to discussion for everyone. But I stand by it that this should have had a longer run. And it's really not fair because it was a pretty good show. So let's go all the way back to 1975 and take a look at the largely forgotten Stephen Hayes Monty Hall property known as Three for the Money.
This is Tony Barreto, a law student, and Donna Forst, a bank teller. They'll be playing together as team number one, and their team captain is Linda K. Henning. This is Kim Heilbrunn, an insurance secretary, and Art Benvenisti, a high school teacher. They'll be playing together as team number two, and their team captain is Dick Gaudier. All this week, these two teams will battle for cash and prizes worth over $30,000 on Three for the Money. And here's the host of our show, Dick Enberg.
Good luck, contestants. It's going to be a lot of fun, all right? Welcome to Three for the Money, a brand new game of strategy and really big money. I'd like to tell you...
Three for the Money was a short-lived game of Q&A and strategy that ran for just 9 weeks on NBC Daytime from September through November of 1975. The show was produced by Stephen Hayes Monty Hall Productions, featuring the legendary Jack Clark as announcer, and hosted by future sports mainstay Dick Enberg. Dick became way more famous as a sports broadcaster, primarily doing baseball and football, but got his start hosting game shows, having also hosted a couple of flops in Baffle and The Perfect Match, and the popular Sports Challenge, which he was also filming at the time. Monty Hall had previously suggested to him that it would help him get his foot in the door and lead to a more extensive career in announcing if all went well, and he was right. The game features 2 teams of 3, each team consisting of a celebrity captain and 2 contestants. The same teams would stay for the entire week, playing Monday through Friday, with the goal of amassing more money than their opponents over the course of the week. The team that's trailing, or the winners of coin toss in the Monday show, would start with control. The team in control would be offered 3 categories, each containing 3 questions. The captain would assign each member of the team a category, and that player would go solo against their opponents in that category for 3 toss-up questions. Each question consisting of 3 clues, the identity of a person, place, or thing. The captain can elect to have their teammate play against 1 member of the opposing team for $100 a question, 2 members of the opposing team for $200 a pop, or against the entire team for $300 a pop. Every time the opposing team got one, they won $100. After all 9 questions are played, the game goes into the 2-minute catch-up round. The team that's trailing, want to guess who that usually was, has control to begin. This time all the questions are general knowledge. Same rules as before, except it's all played to a clock. 1 player of the captain's choosing would compete against 1, 2, or all 3 of members of the opposing team at $100, $200, or $300 a pop per question, with the defending team playing for $100 a question. Whenever the lead changed hands, control would change and the clock would be stopped while the team in control was given a moment to confer and talk strategy. Each team also had 1 timeout they could use while they were in control to change strategy and stop the clock for a moment while they did that. When time runs out, the team with the highest score are the day's winners and advance to the bonus game. For the bonus game, the team chooses one of 3 categories. 45 seconds go on the clock, and the team must identify 7 items associated with the category, which are gradually revealed 1 letter at a time. Each player takes turns answering. If they're wrong, they're out for the game, and their teammates continue on without them. Getting all 7 before the clock runs out wins the day's bonus, which starts at $1,000 on the Monday show and grows by $1,000 each day to a $5,000 prize on the Friday show. Over the course of the week, the team that won the most money also got to keep that money and won 2 new cars. The members of the losing team would receive consolation prizes, plus a $1,000 gift certificate from the Spiegel catalog. So really no one goes away completely empty-handed. Ends up being a profitable week for all involved. It was a decent game, but not without its flaws. Needless to say, the team that starts with control has a considerable advantage. And having celebrity captains was kind of unnecessary, seeing as Dick didn't really have time to interact with them due to the lightning fast pace of the game. They could have easily just been replaced with another civilian, and they typically didn't add much to the game. They also could have had a second round with control swapping before they went to the catch-up round to make things a little more even. But this was really kind of beyond their control. Unfortunately, the odds were stacked against the show right from the beginning, as it aired in a very unusual 25-minute time slot at 12:30 p.m., with NBC airing a brief newscast at 12:55. This worked in the past for shows that had straddled formats, since it wasn't too big a deal if the game wasn't completed in time. They could just pick it up from the next day. But for 3 for the money, each game had to be completed, or else the entire week would be thrown off. So a lot of things had to be rushed. I mean, think about it. You're already 5 minutes in the hole. Then you've got 8 minutes for commercials, so that leaves you only about 17 minutes to get through the whole show. It was not uncommon for Dick to have to barnstorm through rules, or hurry teams to make decisions, because they were pressed for time. But despite the flaws, it was a functional game, and in my opinion, deserved a better run. What ultimately ended up being the death nail for the show was the decision to expand Wheel of Fortune to a 1-hour format, which in itself ended up being pretty short-lived. To do this, it pretty much came down to 3 for the money, or the Magnificent Marble Machine getting the axe. NBC had already invested tons of time and money into the Magnificent Marble Machine, and despite the fact it was tanking, they weren't quite ready to admit defeat on that yet, and were convinced it could be a hit. So they canceled Three for the Money. For Dick Enberg, this would be his last network game show. But the loss wasn't too serious, because he had recently signed on with NBC Sports shortly before Three for the Money debuted. So he had steady work waiting for him. And he kind of can't help but wonder if Three for the Money had been successful. Because of his commitments to NBC Sports, he probably would have had to step down. But anyway, Dick would stay with NBC until the year 2000, where he called virtually every sport you can think of, though mostly baseball and football. He would eventually move to CBS Sports and stayed with them until 2014. During that stint, he also did some work for ESPN until 2011, thanks to a working relationship between CBS and the then fledgling ESPN. In 2009, he also began calling San Diego Padres games for 4SD, and stayed on when coverage of those games moved over to Fox Sports Network in 2012. He would sign an unprecedented 20-year contract. This made a rare case of an announcer doing work for two competing networks at the same time for a couple of years. Ultimately, the 20-year deal wouldn't pan out, and no one was really that surprised due to Dick's age, and he announced his retirement after the 2016 season, which ended a 56-year broadcasting career. In one of his last broadcasts, he was joined by another legendary announcer who retired that year in Vin Scully, making for a real treat for baseball fans to have two of the greatest call one last game together. Sadly, Dick would pass away in 2017 of a suspected heart attack. He was 82 years old. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Global Game. Thanks for watching, and on behalf of all of us, take care and so on.